Tonight, trade talk shift. Carney signals a change. Heavy rain leaves Montreal underwater again.
And a group of Republican lawmakers is bothered by our wildfire smoke. From beautiful Montreal, I'm Eddie Tekalik.
And I'm Gary MacDonald. This is episode 42 of Night Talk, and you can join the conversation tonight. Simply post your comment, and we will respond to as many as possible. And remember, please like, share, and subscribe to help our stream and channel get exposed to more people like you. Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney caught many off guard yesterday as he arrived for a cabinet meeting in Ottawa.
First thing to say is the government has consistently stood up for Canadian workers and businesses throughout these negotiations. Will continue to do so. I expect that the discussions will intensify between now and the end of the month, and we'll be working hard on that. At the same time, we need to recognize that the commercial landscape globally has changed. It's changed in a fundamental manner, and we will continue to focus on what we can most control, which is building a strong Canadian economy.
And while responding to a French reporter, Carney indicated it now appears any trade deal will come with some level of tariffs. Now, this latest revelation came after U.S. President Trump last week sent a letter to Carney indicating Canadian goods outside CUSMA and existing sectoral tariffs will be subject to a 35% tariff effective August 1st, which, by the way, is the deadline for the much anticipated new trade deal between us and the U.S. It also comes as a new Angus Reid poll shows the majority of Canadians want the PM to take a tougher stance in the trade standoff. Well, Eddie, first of all, Trump sends the letter to the Prime Minister last week, but he also, I think it actually came out maybe on Truth Social prior or before it actually landed on the Prime Minister's desk. Mm-hmm. So there it is on Truth Social. And here's the letter, and he goes on about everything, and you know, we've all heard most of it by now anyhow, but bottom line of it is he's threatening 35% tariffs on everything else that's not covered by CUSMA or any of the tariffs that he's like put on our steel and aluminum industries, for example.
Right.
And it's interesting to note because Mexico, he sent a similar letter to Mexico, but he's only threatening them with 30%. As a matter of fact, from what I understand, out of the letters that he sent out at the same time that he sent this one to the Prime Minister, Canada ended up with the highest tariff rate. I'm not sure what he's thinking of or what signal he is sending there, but Carney, responded on X. I think Carney may have been on vacation or out of the country at the time. Throughout the current trade negotiations with the U.S., the Canadian government has steadfastly defended our workers and businesses. We will continue to do so as we work towards the revised deadline of August 1st. Canada has made vital progress to stop the scourge of fentanyl in North America. We are committed to continuing to work with the United States to save lives and protect communities in both our countries. We are building Canada strong. The federal government, provinces, and territories are making significant progress in building one Canadian economy. We are poised to build a series of major new projects in the national interest. We are strengthening our trading partnerships throughout the world. Yeah.
What do you, I mean, it's so difficult to say anything to this, Gary. 30%, 35%, he's subsidizing us. I mean, we're a worthless nation up here, according to this guy. And it's just getting extremely frustrating, every week he decides on something else. He'll say, toss out some other rhetoric or so, and just to further, ruffle everybody's feathers. And we're all waiting to see some sort of reaction from Carney that's a little more aggressive, and he just seems to be towing the line, Gary. It's not that he's getting tougher, but by the same token, he's not getting any weaker, and sometimes he does show a little bit of weakness in terms of, we have to admit that this is going to be a difficult negotiation, and so on and so forth. Of course, it is. It's going to be a difficult negotiation because this is Donald Trump that you're dealing with, an individual that does not follow any rules. He makes them up as he goes along. He changes them as he goes along. And whatever agreements we put into place now might be gone a month from now because he woke up in the morning and he had a great idea and he just tossed it out the window, tossed the agreement out the window, just like he has done for Kuzma. I mean, like you were saying, it's up for renegotiation in about, what is it, 17 months, 18 months or something like that.
Yep.
Of course, the American government jumped the gun on this one, but whatever we're going to get is at risk of just being thrown out the window and just restart this because he thinks it's funny. I really don't know. And I certainly would like to see a little more nose punching from the Canadian government. But you know what? I'm kind of holding out until the 1st of August to see what exactly the Carney government is going to do in terms of retaliation, whether it's through tariffs or some other means. Maybe coming up with some fantastic news that we struck a tremendous deal with our European allies, which will offset any tariffs that Trump puts on us. Some kind of good news that will punch the guy in the nose. That's what I think a lot of us are looking for. And like you were saying, the Angus Reid poll had made some mention about Canadians wanting a firmer handle on this or showing some sort of strength from the Canadian government. I'll let you speak to that later. But yeah, I'm week upon week, I'm getting more frustrated, Gary. I know you're getting more frustrated than I am about this whole situation. And I don't know how much more I can take of this. You know what? The 1st of August can't come soon enough for me.
Yeah, but we both know that there will be some kind of a change once again
Yeah.
by the time the 1st of August rolls around. First, just before we go on, because I do want to get into the poll for a moment, but I also want to make sure that we don't get behind on comments, and we do have a few comments to bring up at the moment.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so let's get in here, and let me turn off there. There we go. Okay, Greg says Canada strong, and Greg, I agree with you, but I don't think we are at our strongest at the moment. Okay, Nancy says he wants to bring us to our knees. He wants the 51st state. And if you recall back, was it late last year or very early in the new year, may have been just after he was sworn in, and he was making the noise about Greenland as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he would bring us, I don't think he used the term bring us to our knees, but essentially meant that he would get us to surrender. And somebody said, well, a reporter asked, what are you going to do, an invasion? And he said, no, I'm going to use economic power.
Yeah.
And that's been in the back of my mind since all of this foolishness started. So Nancy, you're right. He really does want us as the 51st state. He's like a little spoiled kid who wants something and won't give up nagging until he gets what he wants, and you give it to him just to shut him up.
But here's a funny thing, Gary, just quickly on that. Does he want us as a 51st state because A, the United States needs our natural resources? You know what I really think? It's B. He wants to say, I was the president of the United States that annexed Canada and go down on the history books. I'm starting to feel that it's more of that than point A.
I think it's actually probably a combination of both, because he'll have direct control over the water, which is a major issue, the Northwest Passage, and the precious metals, critical metals, whatever you want to call them, whatever the term is of the day. Okay, let's go. Joe says, T. Rump signs his letters with best wishes. What an orange imbecile. By the way, hi guys. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Nice to have you again. Best wishes. The other thing that he does, no matter what he posts on Truth Social now, it seems almost everything ends with, thank you for your attention to this matter.
Yeah.
And Monel says, I'm going to disagree with Nancy in this one. He needs somebody to claim war with so that he can cancel the midterm elections. That might be us. And
We're an easy target.
Nancy says he wants our resources.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back. We're caught up there now, and it's great to have this lively conversation going in the comments section. Keep it going, folks, and we'll just keep putting them out as you post. So, where am I going here? Oh, yeah, the whatchamacallit? The Angus Reid. I'll get it after a bit. Okay, the Angus Reid surveys. And where did I put those? Here we go. All right, so they asked a number of questions and a number of responses. And I picked out the two what I thought were key. How confident are you in Canada's negotiating team, including Prime Minister Mark Carney, to deliver a good deal for Canada in these negotiations? And they had 1,697 respondents. 34% confident Carney and team are well qualified to get a good deal. 34%. 13% are confident that because Trump always backs off from threats. 24% not confident because Carney and team poorly qualified to deal with Trump. 21% not confident because Trump too unpredictable. And 8% are not sure. They can't say for sure as to where they think that's going to go.
Yeah.
34% having confidence. I'd be interested to see what kind of level that was at before these negotiations began and before Trump started throwing around some more tariffs and us not responding. I'm wondering if it would have been over 50% at that point.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it's only 34% now because of our very low-key approach that the Prime Minister has taken, including very quickly giving up on the digital services tax, just kind of rolling over and playing dead. So there is that. Now, the other part of the survey, here are some things Canada could offer to secure a trade agreement with the United States. Do you support or oppose? And again, 1,697 respondents. Buying more U.S. military equipment in general. 54% strongly oppose that. 33% strongly, moderately support doing that. And 14% are not sure, they can't say. Okay, so then allowing increased access to the Canadian market for U.S. banks. 53% strongly oppose that. 32%, yeah, okay, well, yeah, maybe. And 15%, not sure, can't say. Giving the U.S. priority over other countries and accessing Canada's rare earth and critical metal, or minerals, I should say. 66% strongly oppose that.
Yeah. Hell no.
Strongly, moderately support that, I should say. Or I'm sorry, oppose it. Strongly, moderately oppose it. 26% are strongly or moderately in favor, 8% undecided. Joining the Golden Dome missile defense system for about $100 billion Canadian. 57% strongly, moderately oppose. 23% strongly or moderately support. 20% are undecided. Increasing U.S. access to water from the Great Lakes. 72% are strongly or moderately in opposition to that. 17% strongly or moderately support it, 11% undecided. And increasing U.S. access to water from the Columbia River in BC, 72% strongly or moderately against, 16% strongly or moderately support, and 13% not sure. Interesting, increasing access to our water, joining the Golden Dome, giving the U.S. priority over other countries to our rare earth and critical minerals. Really strong numbers opposing those ideas.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
strong numbers. There's a strong message there for the Prime Minister
Very
and
much.
his team in maybe how they could have approached the negotiations up to this point, or whatever stage they're at with trying to hammer out this trade deal. But clearly, Canadians really do want to see more elbows up instead of elbows down, as has been the low-key approach of the Prime Minister in the last month and a half. And that's just, I don't know. I get maybe why he gave up. I'll give him a little bit of leeway on giving up on the digital services tax so quickly without any kind of retaliation. But what the hell? Why, 50% tariffs on aluminum and steel. And what has that cost? Like today, he announces a major package to help the steel industry in this country because
Right.
it's been suffering so much under these tariffs. And we had retaliatory tariffs on a number of things, which seemed to be working, and they very quietly were removed over the election period. Why? Why were they? I don't remember anybody, just coming out and just saying, yeah, we've taken the tariffs off and this is why. I don't recall that in any of the conversations as far as, around the campaign was concerned. And part of the campaign, a large part of the campaign was focused on Trump and dealing with Trump.
Right.
There was no discussion of that. Were we perhaps led down the garden path?
Yeah. And it can all, was it also a case of us just being tired of Trudeau, that we were looking for any kind of a bright light to latch onto? We talked about this numerous occasions in our shows, Gary, before the election and just about the time of the leadership. Are we as Canadians desperate for that next leader that's going to give us a glimmer of hope in this time these days? That's very precarious with the wars going on, and especially with the insanity in the United States. That we maybe gave Prime Minister Carney a little too much credit. Personally, I'm not at that position to say I gave him too much credit and conveyed too much confidence in the man. I still think he has an opportunity to prove himself, but I get it, Gary, in terms of what you're saying. Time is fast running out, and I'm sorry that the man didn't get a honeymoon period, really, but the world's moving very quickly, and he's just going to have to react just as quickly. And if that requires, holding up the elbows a little higher, as you just mentioned, he needs to do that. And it's funny though, typically, you're looking at trade deals that actually speaks about free trade between businesses across our border, pretty much, right? That's what Kuzma was all about. But now a lot of the conversation is, let's throw in military equipment. Let's throw in F-35s. By the way, let's throw in this Golden Dome thing. When does defense and military contracts come into the conversation about trade that's supposed to benefit companies in both countries and drive the economy up? So it's almost like, you're playing poker, you've run out of money, and here, take my watch. I'm going to bet my watch, and let me throw my shoe in while I'm at it. And here's my belt. It's gold plated. Playing poker. That's what I'm starting to feel with this. It's like, the negotiations that are ongoing right now should be with building the economy, quote unquote, leaving the military out of it, because that's a completely different line of business and line of discussion. And it could very well be, Gary, that there's a lot of pressure on Trump not to lose this F-35 contract in Canada. He stands to lose. He's probably got shares in Boeing. I believe it's Boeing that's building these things. He'll lose money, and who the hell knows? But it's like I said, the 2nd of August can't come soon enough. And I think at least then you and I and the rest of Canada will understand where we sit with this country, and maybe at that particular moment in time we'll hear some good news in terms of some of the other negotiations and agreements that the Canadian government has made with other parts of the world besides the United States of America.
But if we're just basically bending over now to Trump, what kind of approach and what kind of deals or negotiations do you think we're going to have with other countries when they see that, oh, all we have to
There's
do
a,
is pressure them a little bit and they'll
yeah,
bend? Like, we're not negotiating from a position of strength. Each side goes in with a position of strength, or should, because if you don't, you're going to be walked all over. And that's the stage we're at, I'm afraid. And between now and August 1st, or on August 1st or August 2nd, whenever an announcement is made, whether an agreement has been reached or no, an agreement has not been reached, and Trump says, well, let's make it August 15th. No,
which can
no
happen.
more. Yeah,
That's
yeah, it
enough.
can happen. And just, at that point, I just pack up and come home from Washington. No, we're done.
Yeah, yeah,
Done. Like, we have to start showing some strength here. Yeah, they're our largest trading partner at the moment, or we're their largest trading partner. Like, our trade is so intertwined here, but we have it's like a bad relationship. If it's going south, sooner or later, one side or the other has to say, that's it, game over, I'm walking.
yeah,
For their own peace of mind and sanity, and for the partner's peace of mind and sanity as well. Of course, the sanity on the other side is gone, but I just, why are we doing this when Trump doesn't have all of the cards, despite what he may say. He does not have all of the cards, and I'm really getting somewhat frustrated. Okay, before I get too frustrated, let's bring up a couple more comments so I know what I'm doing. Nancy says he wants our resources. Joe says if we don't come to a mutually agreeable trade agreement by August 1st and Trump continues to throw threats to our economy and sovereignty, then it's time to hit back any way we can.
yeah.
I agree, Joe, except I think you're a month too late. I think we should have been doing it a month ago. And Monel says, guys, nobody's negotiating from a position of strength. This man is erratic and a lunatic. No doubt about that. But you know what? The schoolyard bully only understands when all of a sudden you haul off and you deck him. That's all it takes, is one good to the side of the melon, and there's a newfound respect.
Yeah. And you know what? That would be money. An agreement with another part of the world that basically says, oh, Mr. Trump, we've got 30% trade in commodities between our mutual countries. Well, that's going to be cut down to 5% because we got a new deal with the European Union. Now that will talk. That is a kick to the you-know-what that not even his Republican administration and the House would tolerate, because that is a lot of money, So, rhetoric, no, we don't need that. That's un-Canadian. A warning shot across the bow? Yeah, I think you were right telling Joe it's about a month too late for firing those warning shots. The knockout blow is a statement like that on the 1st of August if Canada cannot reach an agreement with the United States of America. Thank you very much. It's been nice. See you later. That's the way it's got to go.
Oh, by the way,
I don't see any other way.
Carney can say to him, oh, by the way, have a look at my X account. Our letters on there where we just say, okay, there's this tariff, this tariff, this tariff, this tariff. Because think about this for a minute. And this is something that's been rolling around in my head since last week when Trump released this letter. And then he released other letters as well, where at that point, Canada get hit with the highest. Sure, it's only 5% more than Mexico. But by the same token, it's still like, why were we singled out? And we've been at the negotiating table with them a heck of a lot longer than anyone else.
From day one. I mean, there was a statement I heard, I forget where it was, on social media or on television today, where somebody said that, President Trump is getting serious with Russia. Maybe he's going to punish them as much as he's already punishing Canada. Yeah. Literally, I mean, we're being hit with 35%.
Yeah.
That's more than Russia, for crying out loud. I'm not exactly sure how many companies are doing outright business with the Russians besides the ones that are under Trump's banner. I don't know, but that's just the reality of it. He's punishing us for God knows what reason, Yeah,
that's the other side of it. Nancy says she agrees with you.
Thank you, Nancy.
I really wanted to try and give Mark Carney leeway and understanding. I just feel that somewhere, and okay, I'm the armchair quarterback, but I just feel somewhere along the way, for whatever the reason, our side of the negotiations seemed to go off the track. And very quickly, instead of at least negotiating on a somewhat equal level, we lost any position like that we had. And I'd like to know the reasoning behind removing the tariffs that were already in place. Why? Because here's the thing. He's announcing money today for the steel industry, to prop up the steel industry. And if you recall, when they first started putting the tariffs on, and this was under Trudeau, but Carney seemed to indicate the same thing, and that was any money coming in from the tariffs would be used to fund any sort of support programs for workers on the Canadian side impacted by the tariffs, the American tariffs. So we take tariffs off, and now we're announcing a program to help the steel industry, which has been suffering, where, once again, I'm asking the question, where is the money coming from? Yes, he's asked his ministers to come up with a percentage of savings, budget cuts over the next couple of years. But given what we're going to be spending on defense and some of the other commitments that have been made, our economy, unless something happens like overnight, it's going to take a while for our economy to build up the way that he wants to build it. It's not going to happen overnight. Right. So where is the money coming from? We don't know, because we won't have a budget until sometime in the fall. And just before our stream started, I saw a breaking news item where Carney has said that the Crown corporations like the CBC and Via Rail and others are being given the overall to decide where they're going to cut their budgets. Mm-hmm. Well, frankly, given the incompetence of the upper levels of management at the CBC in particular, I would not entrust them with that task at all.
Yeah.
And beyond that, and he's promised them, what was it? I forget the exact figure, but he's promised the CBC additional funding in addition to the $1 billion they're getting now. Before we give out any more money to the CBC, we need to have a look at the way that organization operates, and we also need to redefine its purpose and how it's going to achieve that purpose within the greater scheme of maintaining a Canadian identity and keeping Canadians informed and entertained. Because they have gone right off the rails. Right off the rails. And they're top heavy in upper management. And I could spend an hour or better talking about my thoughts on the CBC, but I won't bore you with that. Just keep an eye on it. And I don't know about Via Rail, because Via Rail doesn't seem to have the greatest reputation of management either. So, if we were in our previous roles now, Eddie, would you take an underperforming division and say, well, you come up with something after they've been given chance after chance to?
Yeah, no, no. Yeah, I mean, track records and track history is extremely important when you're doing an audit or performance audit on any organization. You got to look people straight in the eye and say, next. I mean, you just don't reward incompetence. That's plain and simple.
Well, there's a way to reward it, and that is show them the door.
Exactly.
Nancy says, seriously, he wants our resources. Quit asking why he is doing this. Nancy's getting frustrated too by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I think 1st of August is soon around the corner, Nancy. And by the way, we can do an entire show just on CBC and Via and Crown corporations, Gary. So let's just mark that down somewhere. I think it'll make for an interesting show.
Oh, well, especially the CBC. But anyway, I digress. All right. So coming up later, portions of Montreal are underwater again. First, though, more and more people are becoming involved in video content creation, including live streaming. And if you're looking for a Mac-based application, Ecamm is your solution for recording and streaming with a professional look. Ecamm powers Night Talk. Check out the affiliate link in the description below and try it free for 14 days. A group of Republican lawmakers has fired off a letter to our ambassador in Washington, complaining about smoke from wildfires on this side of the border, annoying their constituents, marring their outdoor activities. This same group, by the way, voted in favor of Trump's big, beautiful bill, which will, among other things, increase production and use of fossil fuels. They also charged we aren't doing enough to prevent the fires. Blazes, they believe, are caused by poor forest management and arson. Now, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew was not impressed with all of that. Not for a second.
And this is what turns people off from politics, is when you got a group of Congress people trying to trivialize and make hay out of a wildfire season where we've lost lives in our province. There's no place for that in politics. If you can't get likes on Instagram from your own skills as a politician, don't bother trying to throw other people under the bus during a state of emergency.
And
well said.
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
So this is the letter they sent. I can't read it on the screen I have at the moment. But anyway, not once did they mention that perhaps what we're going through is the forests in the northern parts of the country are heating up more each year. and that, with lightning and everything else, there's nothing that we can do to control these sorts of things. I mean, look at it in California. They're gearing up again for another season of wildfires through California. But anyway, the smoke from our fires is really cramping the style of these 6 or 7 Republicans and their constituents. Now, I did see a response from a Canadian on YouTube the other day, and it was priceless, as great Canadian humor, but with a pretty solid message too about really, what's with you guys? What are you talking about? So,
Right.
yeah, it. I don't know. Like,
Gary, you know what? You saw it before I did, and you told me before before I could read it. I'm actually trying to contain myself with laughter here, Gary. What I keep on seeing is, here's a solution I propose to you, my friend. Why don't you and I go out to Canadian Tire, buy 44 million rakes, man each woman and child with a rake, and we can go start raking the forests and prevent this. How about that? That's the way California is going to prevent their fires, according to, I would even call him Sir Trump, but Trump, T-Rump. Um, it is just crazy. And, here you have 6 to 7 high level, I think they were congressmen, Congress people in the United States. Um, they're saying their constituents are complaining about smoke. And like, we have any control over the way nature prevails on everything. Like, we have any control over that. That's almost like the Republican supporter basically saying, hey, the people in the UK are 6 hours ahead of us. Why can't they tell us what's going to be happening in 6 hours? This is the type of constituent that the senators and Congress people in the United States are supporting with this idiotic letter, an official letter from the government of the United States to a country to say, hey, can you try to keep the smoke away from us down here, please? Gary, it just, this eclipses everything, and it's a representation of government in the United States of America today. We're laughing about it as Canadians here, as much as the world is watching us during the tariff exercise. The world is watching the United States, and they see these statements. This type of thing goes throughout the planet like wildfire. What kind of a reputation the United States portraying, conveying around the world when you have lawmakers send out an official document like this to Canada? Please keep your smoke within your borders. I don't know how to do that, Gary. What do you think? Oh, there it is. I don't know.
get out there and rake that damn forest. We need to
Or
hire people to rake the forest from
like,
Monel.
yeah, I mean, look, joking and kidding aside, Gary, I thought you were joking with me when you said that this is what the government has been conveying to Canada. And when I saw it for myself, all I can do was laugh. And you know what? Really doesn't require any serious thought on our part. We know what we're doing with our forests here. We know how to prevent fires here. We know how to put them out, and we'll send our firefighters anywhere in the world to help other countries put out the fires, even in the good old United States of America. We have done so in the past, and we'll continue doing so. But let's not make a buffoonery out of this. And fires are going to happen. They are going to be more frequent, and we'll deal with them accordingly as best we can, and as best our technology allows us, and as far as Mother Nature will allow us to control or put out the fires. That's all we can say. It's that kind of a letter is not even worth responding with an official letter from the Canadian government. It's just, yeah, okay, whatever, and let's move on. It's utterly
Well,
ridiculous.
the response can be received and filed,
Yeah, exactly.
but it points to a bigger issue that we're up against too, and whether you're talking trade or a number of other things, the lack of knowledge or understanding of Canada and the size of the country, and the fact that the largest percentage of the population lives right along the border, in most areas within an hour or less driving distance to cross the border, although most people don't want to do that anymore for a whole host of reasons. And it's they're so insular in a lot of ways as far as knowledge as to the outside world. And I there's a YouTube guy that I watch from time to time, and he calls himself just an average American trying to learn about Canada. And it's really quite entertaining to watch some of his reactions, and other reactions he's like very serious, and he can't believe some of the things that have been said or some of the things that have been happening since the current president walked into the White House again. And and he watched with great interest, and actually in a more serious manner commented on the documentary that was done when 9/11, when the planes landed in Gander, and how quickly the people of Gander put together a reception for all of these planes and strangers landing, and
Yeah.
they,
Offering their homes, whatever.
yeah, anything. And he was just totally amazed. And since he's watched that documentary, there are times when he gets a little more serious, and there's an issue that does tend to be a little more serious. He will bring up things like that. We have people. I know of one firefighter from my hometown who went voluntarily to New York and worked in the pile of rubble of the Twin Towers, helping to clear the way and look for survivors, and unfortunately try and recover as many bodies as possible. Went, just said, no, I'm going, I have to go and help my brother firefighters in the U.S. And yeah, so there are a lot of things where we've been right there at their side, and unfortunately, not that we've looked for any sort of platitudes or anything, but to have some of what's been going on thrown at us over the last number of months, yeah, again, it's the trust is gone. It's gone, and I'm hearing more and more people say that it's going to take a long time, and some people are suggesting generations before, if the relationship ever totally heals.
Yeah, true. I can see that.
But again, it's almost like when a family gets into a significant uproar, and it damages the family and the relations, and that goes on for years and years, or a relationship that's gone bad. It's the same
Yeah,
thing.
true.
So yeah. Anyway, we've got a couple more comments coming in, and Joe, that's the Republican mindset right there. They're completely out to lunch. And Monel, Eddie, are we not way, way, way past buffoonery?
It's not over yet,
No.
unfortunately.
No.
It's
So, I don't know what you do, and really if there's any sense in trying to correct or enlighten some of these people. I think it's probably just a waste of breath and effort, but this is what we're up against in a lot of cases. So anyhow, so let's kind of put that it was kind of a started out as kind of a lighthearted thing, but you know what? Yeah, it once you scratch the surface of that, it just follows along the script of everything else of late. Up next, a weekend downpour left portions of Montreal underwater again. The push to buy Canadian continues, as we've been talking, and one Canadian tech solution is Sync.com, a Canadian cloud storage option to replace OneDrive, Google, and iCloud, just to name a few. And with servers in Canada, your data is subject to Canadian privacy laws. For more information, click the affiliate link below and get a 5 gig account for free. Well, it was quite a weekend, especially on Sunday. Severe thunderstorms sporting heavy downpours causing flash flooding in several flood-prone boroughs around the city. Some just finishing renovations after a similar storm last August, not even a full year.
Yeah.
Now, Mayor Valerie Plante visited one of the hard-hit neighborhoods in St. Leonard on Monday.
We want to reiterate that we're working really hard to find long-term solutions. There's not a unique solution for the entire territory. Every neighborhood, every street is different. Here it's a sector that is a priority for us in terms of the investment that are being planned. We have demonstrated, I believe, in the last few years since we took office that we care a lot, and we actually about climate change and how it impacts people. So whatever is through record investment in sponge infrastructures that are really helping, but also how we are investing massively into redoing the underneath infrastructure. But again, everything needs to be put together, but we're also asking the other level of government, federal and provincial, to support the city of Montreal, like other cities as well, because to adapt our territory demands a lot of money.
And that's the big thing, money. Now, when you look at some of the video and from social media, and thanks for gathering some of this together, Eddie, and let's just while we're talking we can just roll the video. But and that's I know it was pretty severe, but I guess sometimes when you're up a little bit higher you don't get the same sort of sensation as you do when you're right there at ground level. But
Right.
It's so indicative of most major municipalities across the country as far as infrastructure that is probably, was put in maybe the mid 50s, early 60s, maybe the 40s. And you've had a lot of rapid growth in a lot of these areas.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure system has not kept pace with the amount of growth. And, when you get into areas like where they clear cut for major developments or subdivisions in some areas of the city, once you take those trees down, you're changing the whole water course as far as its accumulation and its runoff is concerned. I sat on a planning advisory committee and later the village council for a community just outside of St. John. Mm-hmm. And I remember we had a hill and there was a lot of growth going on the hill. And up to that point, it wasn't really regulated all that well. So we started getting, anytime you had any kind of a significant rainfall, we started getting more flooding down on the main road through the middle of the village and then on to houses on the other side of the main road. And we were cutting trees on the side of the hill. So what's there once you start taking the root systems out and you start putting cement in for basements? What's to catch the water? What's to absorb the water? What's to stop the water from just going straight down the hill, flooding anything that's below it, including newer houses? and yeah, you have a real mess on your hands. And I remember one developer came in and he wanted to open up a new street going up the hill, and I was pushing for proper curbing and storm drains, so we could direct the water from there into a proper storm drain system at the bottom of the hill. And I thought I had enough people convinced on the committee to go ahead with it. And the developer knew a couple of people on the committee. Anyway, long story short, didn't win that one. But later on, that same developer came in for another one, and we did manage to start the process of getting proper curbing and storm drainage in. But a lot of major cities across the country right now, it's going to be huge. And look at Calgary. Was it last year where they had the major water main break?
Yeah, it was last year, and for months they couldn't get that corrected or fixed it for months.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what's facing us. And when you look at the growth in Montreal over the last number of years, and especially look at the neighborhood we're in.
Our neighborhood, it's
Yeah.
just growing by leaps and bounds, Gary. I mean,
we've been here 4 years, and the dramatic change that has taken place in this neighborhood is just unbelievable in a lot of
in the
ways.
3 years I've been your neighbor, I remember when we first moved here, there were 9 projects. We're talking about apartments, high-rise, condominiums. 9 projects got put up in about 2-3 square miles. I mean, that is a lot of infrastructure. That is a lot of demand on our existing infrastructure, whether it's electrical, whether it's fresh water, or whether it's sewage. That is just absolutely a lot. And we're right here by the Lachine Canal, of course, and from an environmental perspective, you don't want to just dump all of this sewage into the Lachine Canal. It doesn't solve the problem. And I guess, Gary, like while you were serving in out in New Brunswick, I mean, civil engineers obviously get involved with providing proposals and solutions to be able to plan ahead to build enough infrastructure based on percentage population growth year over year. And I've never been in office, and you've had the privilege of being on a committee. Aren't there solutions presented? I mean, these civil engineers are real sharp and smart people. I guess at that particular point, it's a question of selling their ideas, and then the politics gets involved. It may or may not prevent their solution from being put in. Is it as simple as that, Gary? It's just the politics.
Basically, yeah, that's what it boils down to.
That's a shame, is it not? I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at it too simply, but it's an absolute shame. I mean, you looked at Mayor Plant, who's been at the helm now, a little over 8 years, 10 years now. And you know what? When we flooded 10 years ago, I bet you any money if we searched the archives, she probably blamed the previous administration. And in the last 10 years, I've seen a lot of orange cones all over the city. I'm not sure what they were doing with these orange cones, what they were digging. I know there was a lot of digging in downtown St. Catherine Street, but I really haven't seen any work or any communiques coming out from the municipal government about completely overhauling some of our extremely aged sewer systems. There were projects not too far from here, Gary. The overflow water retention basin they were supposed to build.
Yes. Yep.
Right? What happened to that? All of a sudden, I don't think so. We're going to build a park instead. Okay, so
I think they built.
What are you going to do with all the water?
I think the park is going over that basin. The basin was under construction, and I think the park is going on top of it. And
that was their initial plan, but I think they abandoned. I think they abandoned the idea about putting that basin. But I mean, that's something else we can check out. But these are important things that civil engineers come up with as solutions to be able to capture this runoff water. The neighborhood she was in, St. Leonard, I know it very well. One, I didn't live too far from there many moons ago. My sister lives in the area. And there's a couple of streets that get continuously flooded. And you have to feel for these poor people because I was reading that there were a few individuals that actually just finished renovating their basements from last year's floods.
Yeah.
Now comes the question about insurance. It's going to get to a point that insurance companies will no longer want to insure your home because now you've been declared in a flood zone, even though you're nowhere near a flood zone, just because of the sewage system. 2011, 2011, something like that, when I was still living in Ville Saint Laurent, which is a huge municipality in Montreal. Manel and I got home after a storm. We drove through the storm, and lo and behold, there was ankle deep water in the basement. And you know what? You plead out to the city of Montreal to basically ask questions. How did this happen? How can you help us? And completely falls on deaf ears and basically encourage us to join a civil lawsuit, a class action lawsuit, put your name in the petition. Well, how does that help me renovate our basement? I mean, we had to tear everything up. Bathroom's completely finished. We had you don't want to know what was floating all over the place, and you got zero sympathy from the city. They're supposed to install clappers that prevent backflow, backwash into homes, and in some neighborhoods they did, and in some neighborhoods they didn't. Even though we had those installed, sometimes just the amount of water that gets backwashed from the city's infrastructure is just too much for a residential home to contend with. So it's not a good thing. And you know what, Gary? It's going to get worse, unfortunately. I mean, two major storms like this in a matter of 10, 11 months is just it's crazy how. So why, it's always a question of money and politics, right? It's going to take somebody of significant strength, not to be influenced by whatever, to not do this. It has to be done. The population of Montreal, I mean, people are moving from one region to the other. A lot of people are moving out to the suburbs. At some point, the population is going to be very high there, and they're going to run into these problems as well. Water flows downhill no matter which way you slice it, and homes are going to get inundated with water, unfortunately. And I'm just not seeing very much action from the local politicians, where they'll blame the provincial government. The provincial government is going to say, well, it's a municipal issue, and nothing gets done. Like I said, Valerie Plant's been in power for close to a decade now and singing the same song.
Nancy says, pay paradise and put up a parking lot. I think there's a tune there.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
It's
a
it's
couple
it's
of
it's
things. A couple
heartbreaking
of
to
things
watch
on
it.
this. A couple of things on this, and what gives me a cause for concern right off the bat is how many areas of this city do we have where the stormwater and actual sewage system are combined, so that if you do have an overflow like this, you're not only dealing with just groundwater runoff, but you're dealing with raw sewage as well.
Mhm.
I'm that is a significant health issue
Yeah.
for sure. And it also requires a lot of money to put in the proper systems. Now, from what I can see, aside from the construction through the center of the city for the underground portion of the REM, a lot of the other construction that's been taking place, that when I've walked by, I have noticed where it appears that the water and sewage infrastructure, stormwater runoff infrastructure is all being renewed while they've got the streets dug up. And that's probably leading to some of the lengthy street closures too, because you just don't put that stuff in overnight and then
Right.
fill it over and walk away. So there's some of that work going on. And I think here we're very lucky in the fact that I think they have, over the last number of years, ensured that the system can handle it, because I haven't noticed the utility covers blowing off like you do in other areas of the city, blowing into the air from the pressure of the water, and the water shooting up and everything. And Montreal has joined the list of some of the greenest cities in the world, and we do have a number of park areas and areas where they're putting in a lot of trees and everything. I mean, look at the street out here, Rio, for example, and what they did on Bassins and over on Olier. So they're doing that, and the mayor talked about the sponge pads, and for people from outside of Montreal, they basically have these holding areas where they pick an area where they don't necessarily construct a solid holding area, but they do put enough greenery down and everything so that it can absorb a significant amount of water to keep it from running off into the neighborhoods. And there seems to be, the city seems to have a handle on that in getting a few of those around, and they've seem to have been successful with them in other areas of the city where they've existed now for a while. But the big thing is the Canadian Federation of Municipalities has been pushing for this, and the Prime Minister is talking about getting things rolling in the economy and projects of national security, making sure your cities and your towns and your villages are able to handle the growth as far as potable water, sewage system that's not polluting rivers or lakes, and then a storm water collection system where you can control the runoff, are all, I think, in national interest in a lot of ways as well, because the better a city looks and the better a city can handle things, then the more attractive it is as a place to live. But you've got things like the Canadian Federation of Municipalities have been pushing for federal funding tied to long-term urban renewal projects. The inadequate stormwater management systems. They realize that the public transit modernization delays and the economic toll of constant emergency repairs. And you're right. A lot of the people that were interviewed on Monday after Sunday storm, a lot of them are afraid. They're actually afraid to put in another claim within 10 months.
Yeah.
For fear that it's going to, either the insurance company will pay, but then they'll say you're no longer insurable, or they'll just cancel the policy, say no and cancel the policy.
Well,
and they had one insurance broker on who said, if your repairs are in the $1,500 to $2,000 range, I wouldn't put that through on my insurance. I'd just, do it out of pocket. If you're looking at $25,000, $50,000, that's what insurance is for. It's easy enough to say that, but when you're dealing with the insurance companies, they take a whole different approach once you start
certainly.
kicking around figures like that, and especially within 10 months of the last claim that they paid.
Right. You know what, Gary? I mean, Montreal is really up on the forefront in terms of a lot of these programs they put in place. That's ranking us very highly in the world in terms of one of the most ecological places, best ecologically situated places, and to live in. We're pretty green here. My anger is more with the fact that these areas that regularly go through this flooding situation when it rains heavily. I mean, look, Sunday was an absolute monsoon, as you saw in that first clip you showed. But we do have, rainstorms like any other place in the world does get. And even then, there's significant flooding in some of these areas. What I would like, if I had a magic wand, what I would like our politicians to do, especially here in Montreal, where the danger areas are the neighborhoods that get consistently flooded every time there's a little bit of heavy rain. Never mind this monsoon we just had on Sunday, but heavy storms. We're going to get them all the time. We've had them forever. They happen regularly. Okay, do something about the infrastructure in these zones that are continuously flooded. You look at the Ville Saint Laurent, you look at the Quartier Villa-Hunsik area. I mean, the underpasses in some of these areas, cars get buried. Cars get flooded right to the rooftop, where you have individuals standing on the rooftops to be rescued by someone or other. These are areas that you can very easily evaluate what the issue is. Get our civil engineers to develop the solution that'll redirect water elsewhere. Because one of the days, Gary, somebody's going to drown or get hurt in these areas that are flooded with regularity. There's 5 or 6 zones in Montreal that I'm aware of right off the bat that need attention, that need work. So far, where you and I live, Gary, I mean, fortunately, we live in a condominium complex. We've seen a lot of water streaming down the streets, but we've not seen any sort of flooding per se. But we're not in a danger area. There are other areas like Saint Leonard, for example, as you had mentioned. Other areas in Montreal, Dorval is another area that will get flooded. Focus on those areas. Repair the infrastructure, the water, the water capture infrastructure. That's where you put the money, and you'll prevent people from getting flooded. It comes down to the poor person. I mean, look, coming up with $12,000-15,000 out of pocket in Montreal with 2 working parents and 2 or 3 kids and a full-blown mortgage, as the insurance broker had said, well, I wouldn't claim it if I were you. Of course you wouldn't want to claim it, because the insurance company has to dish out the money for that. That's not cash that you can just come up with. So I really wish the politicians would look at the problem areas and fix the problem areas first. And in the meantime, prevention, which is something you and I are benefiting from here in Griffintown, which is south of downtown Montreal.
Yeah, exactly. And, we do have a lot of green areas, and we're in the next 2 years going to get that beautiful green area across the street from us.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, those are little things. They're expensive in their own right, but those are little things. The big thing is, again, for the last 10 years, the pleas of the municipalities have fallen on deaf ears in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
From time to time, you might get a little bit of a response, but certainly not enough to deal with the increased populations. Now, the other thing is too, Eddie, we're getting smarter about allowing development in 100-year high water marks, for example, not allowing people to build houses within those areas. And you know what? Because of the intensity of the storms, as climate change takes hold, you're going to have to move those back even more, exclusion zones back even farther, because each time it's getting much more significant as far as where the water is going. So there's that aspect of it. But then you look at things like a lot of the low-rise apartment buildings in the older sections of this city, and the duplexes and the triplexes. I remember the first time I walked down the street and saw all of these garages with their driveways going down.
Yeah.
How do you get out of those things in the wintertime if there's a bit of ice, for one thing? But like the last clip in the social media clips that we had, it was almost like a small waterfall going down that driveway right into the basement of the home.
My dad used to own one of those.
Yeah. So, sometimes in the name of architecture and everything else, sometimes in the long run, we're our own worst enemies.
Yeah.
Because certainly you wouldn't build it that way today, and you would, if you know that there's prone to some flooding, you would put in proper drainage and everything around the house to try and mitigate any sort of water. But when you've got it just flowing down your driveway, going down, and into the garage and in through at the rate it was going, good luck, because you're out another $80,000 to $100,000.
Yeah, just like that.
You get it. Yeah. So, those are the things. The same as, where were the planners and what were they thinking and what were the architects thinking with a lot of our buildings in our neighborhood, where they did not provide proper service entrances for these buildings, where the moving trucks could pull up to a loading dock kind of thing, or get off the street to unload or load. And the same with the garbage and
Right.
the composting collections. Instead of lugging all of those bins out to the street and taking up parking spaces and everything else, beautiful buildings, and then you've got bins upon bins overnight and into the next day until they're picked up, full of stinking garbage in the summertime.
Somebody didn't listen to those smart civil engineers.
Yeah, well, there you go. Anyhow, those are, I guess we could sit here all night and solve the world's problems. But who's going to listen to us?
Yeah. We're just a couple of blokes in Montreal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just sitting and chewing on our weed kind of thing. So who knows? Anyhow, I think that'll do it for tonight. And I had something I wanted to, there we go. Yeah. Don't mind me. There we go. Yeah. So anyhow, from our trade signals to smoky neighbors and flash flood battles, summer days may be hazy, but they are far from lazy this year. Let's keep the conversation going. If you're watching the replay, share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, again, to like, share, subscribe. Help expose our stream to more people just like you, and we can expand the conversation. Thanks for spending time with us this week. I'm Gary MacDonald. Good night.
Goodbye, everybody.